Before the wild knew shadows, before fur wore secrets, the leopard walked plain as gold across the open world. But one day, the world changed, and so did he. Welcome to Fireside Fables and Folklore, your hearthside home for cozy tales wrapped in the hush of legend and time. Tonight's story is whispered from the heart of the savannah, where golden grass once brushed against golden fur, and a restless hunter walked the world without disguise. But no one stays golden forever. So fluff your pillow, wrap yourself in a soft blanket, and let your breath slow. Inhale and exhale. You're safe here, and the story is about to begin. If you enjoy stories that feel like soft footsteps through memory and myth, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this tale with fellow dreamers. And if a part of the story speaks to you, leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you carry from the firelight. Long ago, when the earth was still learning to breathe, there stretched a land so vast that even the wind forgot its way. A place where acacia trees stood like watchful elders, and tall grasses swayed in endless conversation with the sky. This was the Painted Plain. It was called so not by people who had yet to settle these parts, but by the animals, who named it for the way the land seemed brushed with strokes of gold, ochre, and sun-baked clay. Here, every creature wore its color like a banner. The zebra wore crisp stripes that dazzled in the sun. The giraffe swayed in soft yellow and brown, blending gently with tree bark and leaf. And the leopard, the leopard, wore gold, pure and unbroken. No spots, no shadows, no secrets, just light. His coat shimmered like sunrise, and though he was silent in step and swift in pursuit, the world always saw him coming. Back then, Leopard was proud of his golden fur. When he passed by the watering holes, birds paused mid-song, and young antelope froze in admiration. Mothers warned their young, "See him? That is Leopard. You must never let him too close." But even then, something stirred inside Leopard, a hunger deeper than meat, a quiet unease like a whisper in his bones, because though he looked fierce, though his shoulders rippled with power, he was often hungry, not for lack of trying. The Painted Plain was too open, too wide. Every chase began with a warning. The brightness of his fur, once a badge of beauty, now betrayed him. Gazelles darted away before his paws left the shade. Baboons laughed at him from high branches. "Too bright, too bold," they jeered. "The sun walks beside you." And Leopard, teeth bared and tail lashing, could do nothing but watch them vanish into thickets and thorn. That year, the rains never came. The sky, once generous, grew silent. Clouds passed without promise. Rivers receded into cracked memories. The tall grass yellowed, then thinned, until the plains wore the bones of themselves. And with the drought came desperation. Waterholes became battlegrounds. The mighty elephants trudged from pool to pool, their great ears drooping. Wildebeest stood in tight circles, wary and worn. Even the crocodiles, once lazy kings of the riverbanks, now slid through dust like shadows of themselves. For Leopard, the drought brought more than thirst. It brought hunger so sharp it hummed behind his eyes. His ribs showed beneath his golden coat. His steps grew slower. Even the birds had learned to flee at the mere glint of sunlight off his back. One night, Leopard sat atop a stone ridge, staring down at the moonlit plain. Below, a herd of impala clustered by the last muddy waterhole. The wind carried their scent, sweet, alive, unbearable. He crouched, holding his breath. But before his muscles could spring, the herd lifted their heads. They had seen him again. A golden shadow in a silver world. They scattered, hooves striking stone. Dust rose, silence returned. Leopard remained still, heart pounding, breath shallow. Then from the brush behind him came a dry chuckle. "Perhaps," said a voice, "you should ask the chameleon how not to be seen." Leopard turned. It was the tortoise, old, dry-shelled, and wise in the way that time forgets to count. "Perhaps," said the tortoise, "you should ask the chameleon how not to be seen."
Leopard turned, his breath held tight in his chest. There, half buried in the dry dirt, sat Tortoise, shell like a cracked drum, eyes half-lidded with patience, as if he'd been waiting in that exact spot since the dawn of time. Leopard narrowed his gaze. "You mock me, old one?" "Mock," said Tortoise, blinking slow. "I am far too old and far too slow for such sport. I simply notice." Leopard growled, low and tired. "Then notice this. I am starving. The grass whispers my name, the sky shines my trail, and every creature sees me before I move. I am hunter, yet hunted by hunger." Tortoise tilted his head. "And still you wear your coat like it is the sun itself? Tell me, have you ever seen the chameleon?" "I've seen its tongue strike from nowhere. I've seen it vanish on bark. A small lizard, no threat." "No threat," said Tortoise, "but great wisdom. The chameleon is not the fastest, nor strongest, nor loudest. Yet no claw or fang finds it easily. Why do you think that is?" Leopard shifted. "Because it hides." "Not just hides," Tortoise said, with a hint of a smile. "It becomes. It listens to the colors around it
and answers in kind. Leopard frowned. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that to be unseen," said Tortoise, "you must first see differently." With that, he turned slowly, painfully, toward the thicket and began to walk, not away from Leopard, but into the dry woods behind the ridge. No trail, no sound, just the soft scrape of shell on stone. Leopard hesitated. "Follow," said Tortoise, without looking back, "if hunger has made you humble." They walked for hours, or perhaps days. Time bent strangely in the woodlands. The further they moved from the painted plain, the dimmer the light grew. Branches grew thicker, weaving over one another, until even the sun seemed shy to enter. Leopard's golden coat caught every shaft of light. It glowed in the shadows like fire among ash. He hated it. The animals here did not move in herds. They watched. Hidden eyes blinked in the underbrush. Snakes slithered between roots. Owls stared from hollowed trees, unmoving. And still Tortoise trudged on. Finally, he stopped at a tree so wide and ancient, its bark looked like cracked earth. Strange vines curled along its limbs like sleeping serpents. "This is where I leave you," said Tortoise. Leopard looked around. "There's nothing here." Tortoise gave a dusty laugh. "There's everything here, but not for those who look with plain eyes." He turned slowly, settling under a low fern. The forest watches. Ask it what it sees. Then he closed his eyes and said no more. Leopard stood alone. Branches creaked, shadows shifted. The wind was cooler here and carried no scent. He paced. He waited. He growled. "Ask the forest," he muttered. "Ask the trees. What nonsense!" But still, the hunger clawed at his ribs. Still, the memory of laughing baboons burned in his mind. Still, the taste of failure clung to his tongue. So, at last, Leopard sat, silent, and listened. The sounds were different here. Not the pounding of hooves or flapping of wings. No songs, no battles. Instead, rustle, creak, flutter. A single beetle passed under Leopard's paw, utterly invisible until it moved. It wore the exact color of the leaf litter. Brown, veined, dull, but clever. Leopard watched it vanish again. Then a flicker in the corner of his eye. He turned. Nothing. Another flicker, a glint of green, then gone. A chameleon, hanging still as a knot on a branch. Then, with slow magic, it shifted hue, blending into the moss behind it. Leopard rose, careful not to make a sound. He crept closer, paws soft on damp loam. No sun here to betray him, only dim light and slow breath. He crouched, watching. The chameleon did not flee. It stared with both eyes, one on Leopard, the other on something else entirely. "You wear shadow like skin," said Leopard softly. "How?" The chameleon tilted its head. "I do not wear shadow. I listen to it." "Teach me," Leopard said. The chameleon blinked slowly. Then it flicked out its tongue, not at Leopard, but at a fly passing between them. A blur, a snap, and the insect was gone. Then silence. Leopard stared. He was not sure if that was a yes or a no. The chameleon vanished into stillness. One moment it sat before Leopard. The next it had become part of the tree. A splotch of green, a shimmer of gray, a living whisper against the bark. Leopard stared hard, eyes narrowing. He crept forward, slow as dusk. No movement, no sound. His breath caught in his throat. Then, snap, a twig beneath his paw. The chameleon vanished again, deeper into the branches, unseen but not unfelt. Leopard cursed and sat back, tail twitching in the dirt. "You trick me with your slowness," he growled, "but I will learn." From behind him, a rustle, not of leaves, but of laughter. "Well, well," said a voice like dry leaves, "even golden ones come crawling to the shadows eventually." Leopard turned sharply. There, half draped in moss, was another animal, a civet, small, sleek, speckled with smudges like spilled ink. Its coat was the color of twilight and rain-stained bark. It stepped from the underbrush with effortless silence. Leopard rose, fur bristling. "Another creature come to mock me?" "Oh no," said Civet, bowing with a grin. "I came to guide you. The tortoise sent word." Leopard's ears twitched. "You speak to the tortoise?" "I owe him a favor. Many of us do." It circled Leopard once. "He says you wish to disappear." "I wish to hunt," Leopard growled. "I wish to survive. My coat betrays me. I burn like a flame in a forest. Even the smallest prey flees before I blink." Civet nodded. "Then you must trade fire for shadow, gold for silence, pride for patience." "And how do I begin?" Civet's eyes sparkled. "You begin by walking backward." They moved together through the thickening forest. Civet did not walk in a straight line. It weaved, it twisted, it doubled back, it stepped sideways. Leopard tried to follow, but often found himself tangled in roots, brushing against loud leaves, stepping where the light pooled too brightly. "No," said Civet, "step only where I step. See how I move. You slither like a snake. I flow like water," said Civet. "You crash like stone." Leopard growled low. "Your enemies already know you," Civet said gently. "The only way to survive is to become something new." That night, they stopped in a clearing beneath the strangest tree Leopard had ever seen. Its bark was mottled black and white, like shadows dancing in moonlight. Its branches curved low, like arms sheltering the ground. Civet pointed with her nose. "This is the mirror tree." Leopard blinked. "It shows reflections. It shows truth." Leopard stepped toward the trunk and looked. At first, he saw nothing. Then the shape of himself shimmered into view, golden, gleaming, unmistakable. But then the bark shifted. The gold blurred. Black patches appeared, flickering, moving like smoke. They clustered, spread, scattered, spots. His own image spotted. He blinked. The image was gone. Was that? "Not a trick," said Civet. "A glimpse. The forest gives signs, but not gifts. The change must come from you." Leopard stared at the tree a moment longer, heart quiet in his chest. The next day they hunted, not to kill, but to watch. Civet led Leopard through dappled light and thorny hush. They watched a genet slink through leaves without a sound. They studied the owls, whose wings made no wind. They crouched beside a python, coiled beneath fallen bark, its shape lost among stones. Leopard learned to walk without rhythm, to pause mid-step, to breathe through his mouth, to let the light miss him. And slowly something began to shift, not in his fur, not yet, but in his mind, where once he moved like a prince through golden grass. Now he began to glide like hunger with eyes. He moved not against the forest, but with it. One morning, Civet stopped beside a shallow stream. "Drink," she said, "then look." Leopard leaned down, lapped the cool water, then stared into his reflection, and saw it. There, just beneath his left shoulder, a mark, not dirt, not shadow, a true patch of darkness, a spot. He gasped. Civet smiled. "The forest sees your effort." More marks would come, but only if Leopard stayed the path. "Will it cover me?" he asked. only if you earn it, said Civet. Camouflage is not a gift, it is a conversation, and you, Leopard, are just learning to whisper. With his first spot earned, Leopard steps further into mystery. Now begins the real transformation, one not just of body, but of spirit and instinct. The days grew dimmer. Leopard followed Civet through a part of the forest where the light forgot how to settle. Even at noon, the shadows clung thick and quiet. Trees stood close together, gnarled like knuckles, and vines drooped like ropes long since let go. Birdsong faded here. The air smelled of wet stone and old bark. Every step was soft, silent, secret. Leopard's paws adjusted. His steps became shorter. His breath became thinner, and his golden coat, still bright in places, now carried patches of dusk. Each new spot began like a bruise, small and pale. Then it darkened, deepened, bloomed. Some rounded, some curled like question marks. None of them placed by his will. They simply appeared, as if the forest were painting him from the inside out. On the 5th day, Civet paused at a hollow in the roots of an ancient baobab. She nodded toward it. "You'll stay here now," she said. "Alone?" Leopard asked. She smiled softly. "You've walked far. Now you must be still. This next part I cannot guide you. But stillness is part of the change," she said. "You've learned to move with silence. Now you must learn to listen without moving." Leopard lowered himself into the hollow. It smelled of moss, soil, and sleeping creatures. He curled his tail beneath him. "What will I hear?" he asked. Civet stepped back into the dark. "Yourself, or something older." Then she vanished. Time passed differently in that hollow. There were no sunbeams to mark its hours, no birds to mark dawn or dusk, only the slow drip of water down bark, the twitch of roots, the occasional stir of wind like a sigh through the wood. Leopard did not sleep, not fully. He stayed still. He listened, and slowly the forest began to speak, not in words, but in reminders. He remembered the grass of the painted plain brushing against his belly. He remembered the startled eyes of the antelope. He remembered his mother just once, whispering, "Wait, then pounce." And deeper than that, something else stirred, a hunger that wasn't just for meat, but for meaning. To not just take, but to belong. He had always hunted by light. Now he would hunt by pattern. On the seventh night, something changed. The wind shifted, cold and slow. A shadow appeared at the edge of the hollow. It did not speak. It did not move, but it watched. Leopard narrowed his eyes. The shadow blinked. It was not a creature. It was a shape. A shape with long limbs and ears like broken branches. Its form flickered. It was there, then not. Its skin shimmered with shifting color. Brown, green, black, ash. Spots like smoke across its back. It crouched beside Leopard without a sound. Then it spoke, in a voice like wind on stone. "You wish to vanish?" Leopard didn't answer. The shadow nodded. "Then you must be hunted." Before Leopard could speak, the shadow lunged. The chase was soundless. Leopard darted from the hollow, his paws barely touching the ground. He dodged between roots. He leapt over fallen logs. The shadow gave chase, silent and tireless, slipping through the dark like mist through fingers. No breath, no footfall, just pressure behind him, always behind him. Leopard ran until his muscles burned, until his paws bled, until the trees grew too tight and the dark too deep. Then silence. The shadow was gone. Leopard collapsed beneath the twisted fig tree, panting. His chest rose and fell. His mind raced. And in the silence, he heard laughter, low, ancient, inside his bones. "Now," it whispered, "now you understand." At dawn, if it was dawn, the forest lightened by a shade. Leopard crawled to a stream and looked into the water. His golden coat was no longer gold. It was dusky now, broken, dappled. He turned his shoulder and saw new marks. Not just spots, but stories. Patterns of shadow, memory, movement. He blinked. The water blinked back. He was no longer just Leopard. He was a hunter of the half-light. That night, the moon did not rise. No stars pierced the canopy. No wind stirred the branches. The forest held its breath, as if it too was waiting. Leopard stood at the edge of a clearing. Civet was beside him again, her eyes reflecting what little light remained. "You've come far," she said, "but the forest still asks a final question." Leopard said nothing. His new coat was mottled with dark petals, spots blooming across his shoulders, legs, and tail. Still imperfect, still incomplete. "What is the question?" he asked. Civet's voice was hushed. "Can you catch what was never meant to be caught?" From across the clearing came a rustle, then silence. Leopard narrowed his eyes. "What is it?" he asked. But Civet was already gone. He stepped into the clearing, senses wide as rivers. No scent, no sound, but a feeling, yes, something was near. Something that watched from behind the bark, from beneath the roots, from inside the dark. Then a flash, a flicker of movement. No shape, no color, just absence. Leopard crouched, waited. The night pressed against his fur like breath. Then a whisper beside his ear. You do not belong here. He turned sharply, but nothing. Another whisper from the other side. Spots are not enough. Leopard growled, then show yourself. Laughter, soft, mocking, all around him. We do not show. We are never seen. He closed his eyes. If sight failed him, he would hunt with something older. Not smell, not hearing, stillness. He slowed his breath, let the world move around him, let the night unfold its secrets. And there, in the space between two heartbeats, he felt it, a heat, a flicker of weight on a nearby stone. He moved without moving, crawled like smoke across the ground. A blur of shadow darted ahead. Leopard lunged, missed, not fast enough. The night grew longer, or perhaps time no longer mattered. 3 times he chased the unseen shape. 3 times he failed. Each time it led him deeper, through tangled roots, across black streams, beneath hanging moss and under fallen trees. Then, on the 4th attempt, something changed. He didn't chase. He stopped. He let the forest lead it to him. He sank into the hollow of a tree, curled his tail beneath him, and vanished into the silence. He waited, and then footsteps, so light they barely touched the earth, so soft they might have been imagined. The shadow creature stepped into the clearing. It sniffed. It paused. It passed by the tree. And in that moment, Leopard struck, not with rage, but with rhythm, not as a beast, but as the forest itself. His claws met fur. His teeth brushed a neck. The shadow froze, then laughed. "You've learned," it said. The shape shimmered in his jaws. Not a creature, but a veil of motion. It shifted in his grip, fur becoming feather, scale, smoke, nothing. He released it, and the thing stepped back, smiling. "You no longer wear the sun," it said. "You wear shadow." And then it melted into the trees. Leopard stood alone. But he was not the same. He turned toward the stream again. Dawn had finally broken. A single ray of light pierced the canopy, and there, in his reflection, he saw it. His coat, no longer gold, no longer whole. Now it was a tapestry of shadow and light, a dance of dusk and sun. Spots like the dreams of the forest stitched across him. He was complete. Leopard returns to the world that once mocked him. No longer golden, no longer chasing. He is now a whisper in tall grass, the first to wear the wisdom of shadow. The sun rose slow over the painted plain, its stretched golden arms across the grasslands, warm and wide, just as it always had. The acacia trees cast long shadows. The wind wandered lazily between termite mounds. Life had returned, thin but surviving. The drought had broken. Storms had passed through in the night. Pools sparkled again like small mirrors. Green shoots curled bravely from cracked soil. Herds returned, cautious but hopeful. And so did the baboons. Perched high in the trees, they scanned the horizon with restless eyes, gossiping amongst themselves. "Too dry still," one muttered. "Too bright," another said. "No sign of leopard," the eldest yawned. "Probably faded away." But below, between stalks of tall grass, something moved. Not loud, not golden, not seen. Leopard stepped softly into the world he once knew. The wind no longer pointed to him. The light no longer gave him away. He passed within a whisper of a grazing impala. Its ears twitched, but it did not run. He circled the water hole as wildebeest drank. One looked up, sniffed the air, saw nothing, returned to the water. He was not invisible. He was unnoticed. At dusk, he climbed the old stone ridge where he had once watched the herd scatter from his brightness. Now the ridge was empty, silent, the perfect place for memory to meet meaning. From behind a cluster of stones came a familiar rasp. "Well," said Tortoise, "look at you." Leopard did not speak. He sat beside the old one, his coat catching the last red streaks of daylight. The spots shimmered like constellations, each one a lesson learned. "I watched you walk with civet," said Tortoise. "I felt the forest change when you stopped trying to shine." Leopard finally turned. "You knew this would happen?" "I only knew what could happen," Tortoise replied. "Spots are not given, they are earned." Leopard nodded. "I understand now." "And what will you do?" asked Tortoise. Leopard looked across the savannah where gazelles grazed unknowing. "I will hunt, not with pride, but with patience, not with fury, but with knowing. I no longer need to be seen." Tortoise chuckled. Good. The world needs fewer kings and more shadows. News spread across the plain like a hush. A new hunter walked the tall grass, one who moved without sound, one who could not be seen until it was far too late. The baboons fell quiet. The impala grew skittish. Even the lion, proud and golden, paused at the scent in the air, unfamiliar but ancient. And so the leopard earned his place, not by roaring, not by ruling, but by learning the silence of survival. His spots were not just marks of shadow, they were the story of becoming. And ever since, his children have worn the same, a golden coat broken by darkness, a dance of light and stealth, the first camouflage, crafted not by nature alone, but by hunger, humility, and the forest itself.
And that, dear listener, is how the leopard got his spots. Not in a single day, not by wishing, but by failing, listening, and finally becoming something new. If this tale touched your heart like sunlight through leaves, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories told in the hush of time. And if you carry a favorite part with you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. We love hearing what echoes through your night. Now, rest your eyes, let your breath slow, and know that in the quiet between dreams, stories still walk softly, just like leopard in the grass.